the Agile brand.
Welcome to the Delighted Customers Podcast, now part of the Agile Brand Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark Slayton, and I am so glad you're here. I empower leaders to delight their customers, and I talk to guests with a wide range of expertise who share meaningful insights, wisdom, and practical tips that you can use immediately. I'm also excited to announce the Trusted Guide Roadmap Masterclass for CX leaders who struggle with executive buy-in and are ready to go beyond CX fundamentals. The Masterclass gives you proven frameworks and takes you step by step through a 4-step model that will move you past the frustration of not getting your work done. It's unique because it's live, interpersonal, hands-on, and we give you tools and templates to help you build your CX roadmap. To learn more, visit empoweredcx.com. That's EMPOWEREDCX.com. And now on to the show. Well, I am so excited to invite back to the show my friend Greg Kihlstrom, who is a best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur, and serves as an advisor and consultant to top companies on marketing technology, marketing operations, and digital transformation initiatives. He has worked with some of the world's top brands, including Adidas, Coca-Cola, FedEx, HP, Marriott, and Nationwide. Greg, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be back. Good to see you again.
Great to see you, Greg. And full disclosure, Greg and I have partnered up. I have joined his Agile Podcast Network, and I guess it's been somewhere around 6 months, and I'm part of a group of other podcasts that Greg oversees. And thanks for including me in that, by the way, Greg.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's been a great ride so far. So yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So Greg and I go way back, but Greg has been on the show, and he has an unimaginable amount of energy. Greg, how many books have you written now?
I kind of lost track. So it's somewhere approaching 20, but yeah.
Approaching 20 books. Okay. So what I'm really excited about to dig into today is an area that I know is sort of in your sweet spot, which is marketing technology, or Martech. And in particular, the intersection between Martech and customer experience management. And I know that you have experience in CX as well, but you're make sure I'm getting this right. Your roots are really in marketing, right?
Yeah, definitely. And there's certainly some overlap, and I know we'll talk about it, but really marketing is kind of the sweet spot.
Okay. So the world is filled with acronyms and words that have different meanings, such as customer experience, which means an awful lot to a lot of different people. And I am sure that marketing technology, or Martech, has been misconstrued or thought of many different ways. So let's level set for our audience here. When we say Martech, what do we actually mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a pretty broad category as well. Anyone familiar with the Martech Lumascape? I lost track. There's many thousands of platforms that call themselves Martech, but really, what at the end of the day, what it is, it's marketing platforms that do really from soup to nuts. It's collecting data and information about customers. It's delivering marketing campaigns and experiences to customers, and then it's analyzing those campaigns and initiatives. So everything from data collection to analytics and everything in between, and that's why Martech is a very big it's a very big place to be. So a lot of times you'll find people focused on one niche of it. E-commerce is just one narrow niche of Martech and stuff like that. So I try to focus on the strategic parts of it and the process oriented parts of it, because nobody can know all the ins and outs of all of it. But again, at its fundamental level, it's focused on those basically data delivery and analysis.
So let me double click on that a little bit if I can. You mentioned that the word platform, and it brought up something for me in the course that I teach at Michigan State. It's customer relationship management. And right off the bat, people think of Salesforce.com or Microsoft Dynamics or some software platform that manages sales pipelines or contact management. And of course, the course is much more than that. It's sort of the end-to-end understanding of the customer life cycle and how you can use automation strategically and first think through the strategy and then apply it to earn loyalty and trust from customers so that you can improve business outcomes. So when I say that, it feels to me like there might be a parallel. So I want to get a distinction for the audience when we say platform. Is platform really just a component of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, there's the software itself, and then there's the use. There's it comes down to people process. I add data to the people process data platform. So platform at its most simplistic is literally the software and the code that runs it. But you could also look at platform as the people and the processes that are using it, right? So in the Salesforce example, yeah, I mean, you have a subscription, but it takes a lot more than a subscription to a piece of software to really make Salesforce run. You've got to have processes that guide the people that are using it. So I would say the same goes for Martech. I mean, you can have a customer data platform that is a thing that you pay a subscription for, but in the broader sense, you need a way to collect customer data. You need a way to understand who your customers are, and then you need to do something with that data. So that could be one piece of software with some people using it, or it could be a collection of different pieces tied together.
Okay. All right. And then for us, could you draw the distinction or the connection, the interrelationship between MarTech and customer experience management?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the lines do get blurred sometimes, and sometimes I think that's a good thing, and sometimes I think it's just confusing. It's kind of to go back to the Salesforce analogy. It's like there are salespeople using a CRM, but there's also marketing people that are sending marketing emails and all that stuff using that same CRM. So it does get a little blurry sometimes, but I think where things are headed is marketing and CX technologies being used a lot more in parallel and a lot more synonymous with one another. I mean, I think this gets back to the benefits of being able to react and make a better customer experience in real time versus purely lagging indicators like surveys and all those kinds of things. I think to me the exciting parts about where marketing and CX kind of collide in a good way are, let's influence a more positive customer experience in real time. And from my marketing background, that sounds a lot like marketing, but from a CX practitioner's point of view, it sounds a lot like CX because you're in the moment and you're creating a great experience. So I don't see that as a downside. I see it as a little bit of orgs need to figure out maybe division of labor or who does what. But that's, to me, that's right at the intersection there, and I think that's where the exciting stuff right now is happening.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's hard to believe we're already into summer when life goes by so fast. It's important to take a moment to pause and check in. What do you want to celebrate so far from the year? And what are some adjustments you might want to make for the rest of the year? Therapy can help you take stock of your progress and set achievable goals for the next 6 months. You might want to think about your family, your friendships, your personal goals. Where do you feel like you're making progress, and where do you feel like you might be able to use some help? If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charges. This summer, take a moment. Visit betterhelp.com/delighted to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/delighted. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about some of the exciting stuff and the coolest stuff you've seen out there. I know you've been out and about and traveling, speaking, and podcasting from all over the place. But before you do, let's talk about the big deal. I always like to figure out, why should the C-suite care? What's the big deal about Martech?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's clear, anybody that reads the research and all that, I mean, they know, and anybody that listens to your show, like, they know the importance of customer experience, and they know that brands that lead with customer experience are performing better. The challenge gets into, again, it's this intersection between these disciplines, and it's always a problem when an organization makes their org chart the customer's problem, right? So it's like, it's these gaps in these areas where the marketing handoff to CX or the marketing handoff to sales, or something like that, these are the gaps where problems occur and where customers start having, like, okay, they start having some challenges. So leaders need to understand this. They also need to understand that there are huge opportunities to influence customer experience, loyalty, behavior, word of mouth, you name it, in the moment, not after the fact. You can do that after the fact, but, like, in the moment is where really exciting and important things can happen. And leaders that are not capitalizing on that, they're just passing up opportunities, and they're hoping that they can kind of capitalize on a positive experience a day, a week, a month after the fact, and that's just too late.
Yeah. So it is a big deal, and by capitalizing some of these things in the moment, the experience that the customers have, rather than being too late, you could affect loyalty, you could drive loyalty, which ultimately leads to better business outcomes.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's the experience orchestration. I mean, I was at the Forrester show the other week, and I was on a panel talking about this stuff, which is, journey orchestration. Everybody listening to this probably familiar with journey mapping, and journey orchestration kind of grew out of this. From my perspective, it grew out of this marketing world of, like, marketing automation of, like, okay, I want someone to do this, then this, then this, and then they'll become my customer. When you really, the modern and the better approach is, what's the best thing for the customer to do next? What's the best thing for the customer to see next? Let's let the customer guide the experience and the journey instead of dictating what happens to them. When companies have you've got to have the tools in place to do that, but you also have to have the right mindset, and you have to have people thinking about this stuff in the right way. That's where I see, leaders need to be focused on this stuff. And I think they get it intellectually, but I don't think they're necessarily putting the strategy and the processes in place to do it.
So one of the guests that I had on was Joe Pine, who wrote The Experience Economy, and one of the really the founders of what we now call customer experience, along with Luke Carbone.
Yeah.
And Joe talks about this idea of well, initially it was mass customization, moving into this idea of personalization, and this idea is that there is the one-to-one relationship with the customer. There aren't mass markets. There's just customers,
Yeah.
and this move toward unique personalization. And kind of hearing that in the themes of what you just shared, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think, many people, I mean, I would consider myself one of them, have been talking about this for a while, but it's always, when it comes down to it, small organizations don't have the bandwidth to do this one to one. They do it manually. They pick up the phone and they talk with their customers because maybe they have a small enough customer set. Large orgs, you'd think they'd have the resources and the dollars and the bandwidth to do this, but this gets exponentially more difficult to personalize to, if you have 10 audience segments, that's 10 variations across 6 different channels, across 5 different journey stages. Do the math, and all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how many people you have on your team, that's a lot of work. What's really exciting to me right now and about AI is, ChatGPT is cool and I have fun playing around with stuff, but generative AI actually lets us, like, start exploring this world of we actually could generate a one-to-one experience and a one-to-one content match for every single individual. And it doesn't take additional human resources. It takes some human strategy to put it together, but it doesn't take one person writing an individual piece of copy for every single customer out of 10 million customers. It takes the right process in place. To me, like, that's what I'm excited about right now. And the time is, if not here, it's like it's almost we're within minutes on the scale of Martech and CX and stuff of this really coming to fruition.
So, would it be fair to say that a myth is that this is some futuristic idea that we can shift from mass customization to one-to-one personalization, meaning that as you described earlier in the journey map or journey orchestration piece, is that kind of let the customers drive their journey, let them be in control of it.
Yeah.
And with the ability of generative AI, we might be getting really close to it. It may not be a myth anymore.
I think we're really close. And, there's some areas, there's, highly regulated industries. There's going to be some things that they don't want to just kind of let loose. Even there's ways around some of that stuff, but still, there's some areas where, healthcare and FinServ and stuff, like there might be some areas where they don't just want the AI to, make stuff up or something like that. But there are a lot of areas right now that are, some are ready, some are almost ready, and there's components of it that are definitely ready, today to start doing this stuff. And if you're an enterprise org and not actively working on this stuff, like you're going to be behind in within a year.
So, Greg, let me ask you, what are some strategies? And then I want to talk about some cool stuff that you've seen out there. But give me three strategies that a leader, whether it's a CX leader, a business leader, senior management or an organization can use to implement relative to MarTech to impact customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make it kind of simple here because I think I think of everything in it used to be called the three-legged stool. I've added a fourth leg to it in the way I talk, but it's people, process, data, and platform. And so platform's already taken care of because we're talking about Martech. You need a people strategy, you need a data strategy, and you need a process strategy. And so the people strategy is, how do humans work and augment their work with AI tools? I think that's the biggest challenge right now for leaders to figure out is AI should not replace your teams, but AI should augment them. And just thinking through, what does that really mean? Do you have the right people to do that right now? You may not have the right people, but it doesn't mean you're going to need to. I've heard people say they want to cut their marketing teams or their CX teams in half or something. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's getting the right people on the teams. And yeah, maybe you cut a couple roles here or there, but it's really that augmentation. From a process standpoint, I think it's similar to that, is like, what do humans do best in a world where they can automate a lot of stuff, they can get the first drafts of a lot of things ready to go and just save a lot of time. Like, focus people, get your people really smart on strategy and understanding the next piece, which is data. I mean, if we're living in a world where AI is driving more and more of what we do, the first thing you've got to do, and I guess I'm talking about this last, but I should have talked about it first. Like, you've got to get your data house in order if you're going to rely on AI to do anything. And so, some of the orgs that I work with, the very large ones, that's the very first step. I mean, we think through some nice use cases, and wouldn't it be cool if? But the very first thing we do is get the data house in order, and are we going to be able to support all this stuff so that people, process, and platforms can actually perform?
Greg, I think it's interesting what you said about get the data in order. It reminds me of Winning on Purpose, Fred Reichheld's newest book. And he talked about a story of a CEO who went into a meeting, and I think it was a rental car, very large rental car company. And he asked his C-suite, how many customers do we have? And the room was silent. And he's saying, you can tell me how many cars I have in every country in the world and how many cars are sitting on a lot and how many we rented out. But you can't tell me how many customers we have. We have a problem. And he was pounding on the table.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you say get your house in order, your data house in order, it really is being able to not just have data lakes and data warehouses and data in all these places, but be able to, call up what you need when you need it and make sure it's accurate. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no shortage of data. I mean, I think every org, no matter how big or small, they're collecting way too much stuff. They'll never actually be able to use most of it, to the degree that it could be used. But yeah, being able to structure it or have AI or other other tools structure it for you, that's really the trick. And are you what you just said, are you giving people the right access to the right time to be able to do stuff with it? And sometimes that's a platform that does something with it, but more often, it's going to be having the people have the right access to the right stuff to help them make decisions.
For any business to thrive, effective communication is key, not just for success, but for maintaining a healthy, respectful work environment. And that's where Service Skills comes in, a proven e-learning platform that's transforming organizations through micro-learning modules. Think about it. Are your customer service interactions up to par? How inclusive and collaborative is your workplace? Service Skills offers hundreds of courses on everything from customer satisfaction and team building to management and respectful workplace practices. Validated by millions, these courses empower your staff to excel and communicate effectively, enhancing both personal and company-wide success. And the best part? It's all available at your fingertips with affordable pricing and flexible options that fit your organization's needs. Elevate your team's skills, boost workplace respect, and foster a culture of diversity and inclusion. Join the ranks of satisfied clients who've seen tangible results in performance and communication. So I was going to ask you about mistakes that companies make in regard to Martech and its use and implementation. And I heard two. I want to pull two out of what I just heard you say. One is one of the mistakes would be cart before the horse, get the data in order. If not, that could be a mistake. And two is thinking about AI as a way to remove FTEs, to reduce headcount, to improve cost. And you're saying that's not really the right way to think about it.
Yeah, if it's a byproduct of becoming way more efficient and all those things, then so be it. But it's I mean, I write this LinkedIn newsletter. I call it AI isn't a goal or a strategy. And so, AI, I mean, it's it's a tool to help us do better work, be more strategic, so on and so forth. So to think of it as, okay, I'm going to reduce my headcount because chat GPT is installed on our machines, like that, I think that's the wrong, it's just the wrong way of thinking altogether. Again, it may be a byproduct, but I mean, what we've seen time and time again, I mean, historically, technological advances create more jobs there's this adjustment period, and I think we are going to go through some of that. I mean, there's been some layoffs over the last year or two even, but there's going to be some adjustment. But a couple of years from now, I think we're going to be looking back and seeing that this was an opportunity. It's hard to know what is going to happen 2 minutes, let alone 2 years from now. But I think we're going to look back and see this as a major opportunity where humans might actually enjoy their jobs better because they're kind of some of the drudgery is lifted off of our shoulders.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you're saying. I agree that there's probably human nature is we fear losing jobs. We fear how AI is going to change the world. I want to affirm something that you said, if I could, using a former guest, Horst Schulze, who is the co-founder and former president of the Ritz-Carlton hotels. And he said, look, there are four things that companies need to focus on starting with hotel industry, but expanding well beyond that, is they need to get customers, they need to keep customers, they need to grow the business with customers, and then they need to get cost efficiencies. And to your point on the cost efficiency piece, he said, but never at the expense of the customer experience. He used the word customer service, but today we know it is customer experience, right? So the idea there is what we're trying to do. Yes, if we can automate something that was a human activity that took a long time to do, and then machines can help speed that up or crunch it so we don't need as much bandwidth from humans, great. But ultimately, how can it augment the experience for customers so that you can earn more loyalty and trust from your customers and get and grow share of wallet and things like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think some of the opportunities there are, what if your employees had better information and could literally ask any question that they wanted to, democratizing data and access to it and to help your customers. So, you think about that in terms of customer service. There's lots of tools already available that help indicate if a customer is upset and give sentiment, like real-time sentiment. There's other things that will pull up, data about a customer in real time, or opportunities to, it's not just about upselling and cross-selling even. There's lots of ways that employees can help, and that does require a person, that employee, to deliver the message, or, maybe decipher, okay, of three options, this is the one that I think might be best. But it's powered by data, it's powered by AI. And that's, to me, that's the win-win is, customers. I mean, I like doing things self-service, but not everybody loves that experience. And there's always going to be that use for that frontline employee too. So finding ways to keep them in the mix and, just have that win-win, I think is important.
Yeah. Yeah. So many great points. So we talked about some of the myths, we talked about mistakes, we talked about some strategies that you shared. Tell us about some cool stuff you see happening in the world of Martech. Perhaps it could involve AI. You've been out there. You've been at conferences and shows. What do you hear? What are some things that are tools or whatever that are striking your fancy?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, kind of to what I was just talking about. I think the self-service, like from an employee standpoint, the idea that I could query my Martech, data, my CX data, all that stuff, and say, what's the biggest complaint from the last 30 days from customers at a specific location. I just did a demo with a platform that allows this to happen, and to be able to say, like, to make a data request to an internal team to say, hey, I need you to create me a dashboard and pull this and this data in it. In an enterprise org, that's like a 2-month request.
Mm,
Let's face it, it's a slow process to do that. What if you just, like, you're talking with Chat GPT or whatever, what if you just ask that question and all of a sudden you're able to solve a real problem in a real location immediately? To
mm,
me, that is like super exciting stuff, and it doesn't require me to go out and learn Python and be a data scientist and all that stuff. It just requires me to, like, empathize with a customer and ask the right question. And maybe I asked the wrong question the first 5 times, but it's so quick and easy. I can keep asking until I get the right, until I ask the right one. So I mean, I think there's stuff like that that's really exciting. And then, I'll go back to the experience orchestration stuff, which is what I'm really focused on just with my consulting work, is looking at, how do we kind of turn this journey orchestration and marketing automation thing on its head and really build experiences around our customers. That takes a lot of, like, it sounds cool and neat, and man, if we could just pull a switch, and wouldn't that be great? But it takes a lot of coordination behind the scenes of really changing the way that organizations, that, we talk about silos, and that's a cliche, but it's real. It's a cliche for a reason. Breaking down silos so that teams can work together to actually deliver this omni-channel experience that customers, I know, I bet I love it. customers love this way of thinking, but it requires organizations to really change the way that they're structured. But I think that's really where it's at right now, and I'm pretty focused on it.
Yeah. And you threw a word out that, most CX people would be familiar with, marketing people would be familiar with. Just so omni-channel, we're talking really about the customer's ability to engage with you whenever, wherever, however they want, including starting an engagement in one channel and ending in another, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Mhm.
I mean, depending on the stats you look at, I mean, people are switching between at least like 5 or 6 channels during a typical, this is like B2C, during a typical sales process of, 12, 13, 15, who knows how many channels there are now. So it's like, if you are a brand out there, you've got to be great at like 15 different channels, not knowing which 5 or 6 someone is going to use. And those 5 or 6 better be consistent, and they better talk with one another, because I mean, we've all been, I'll use the customer service example of like, why do I keep having to repeat my problem to this person, then that doesn't just happen in customer service, that happens everywhere. That handshake of data, like customers just, they don't have patience for that anymore.
hmm So a lot of positives, a lot of ways that we can use AI and Martech to improve the customer experience, to make the experience more seamless for the customer, more pain-free for the employee delivering the experience. And what senior management would love to hear is that I can improve cost efficiencies. I can speed up the delivery of the experience and the service. I can improve loyalty and therefore gain more share of wallet, repeat purchases, and all that good stuff, and obviously affect all the financial outcomes like revenue and profits, right?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds pretty utopian. There's a lot of work, obviously, that goes into it, but it's like,
Right.
I always try to stress this focus on, lifetime value. I mean, this is an investment in your customers to do this. It's not easy. It takes change, but when you're focused on that lifetime value of customers, when you're focused on lifetime value of employees, and I would even introduce this concept of business lifetime value as well, and just thinking of like, when we're thinking about the longer term, I know that's hard for shareholder driven companies to, you can't just do that, right? You've got to think short term and long term. But when you're more focused on that lifetime value, like, yeah, all of a sudden these investments become pretty no brainer to make, and it doesn't take that long to start seeing incremental improvements on this stuff when you're able to optimize interactions, pretty much on, day one on turning some of these systems on.
Great stuff, Greg. So much fun, so many insights, great strategies, great way to think about that. I love that, people, processes, and data, and you talked about platforms as well. So we gotta land the plane here. But before we do, I want to ask the same question I ask all my guests, which is, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. Probably a lot of things, but I'll edit it for the show here. I think a good and bad thing about me, I like a lot of different things and I love to learn, but I think, focusing on a few things probably would have gotten me a little bit further, a little quicker. So, I feel like now, at the point I am in my life, I talk about all this stuff, and I love to learn, but really it ends up being about process for me and process improvement for me. Everything else are things that I have to know. And so, yeah, my advice would just be to, maybe focus a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit.
There you go. There you go, Greg. If people wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way?
Sure. Yeah. So two things. So I'm super active on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me there. Greg Kihlstrom. You should be able to find. There's not too many of us. You should be able to find me there. And then you can go to my website and see the podcast and my books and stuff like that. It's just gregkihlstrom.com.
Okay, Kihlstrom.
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Greg, thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for listening to the Delighted Customers podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode or any of my other ones, hit subscribe or follow. I've got a lot of other great guests that are coming up and a lot of other great content, and I don't want you to miss anything. You can find any links or references on the show in the show notes, and you can find those at my website at empoweredcx.com. That's EMPOWEREDCX.com. Also, make sure to check out the other shows in the Agile Brand Podcast Network by going to www.agilebrandguide.com. The Delighted Customers podcast with Mark Slayton is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content.
The Agile Brand.